Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a wonderful weekend here. So we got lots of stuff to cover. First thing is 5-minute moneymaker. What do you do after a client tells you they want to move the money? So I want to make sure you guys know where the tools are to get the client and how we get a client to lock the other guy out so they can't get back in there and change the client's mind. So if you don't know about those tools, make sure you do look at that. And then the 5Q tape breakdown, listen to a little sound can be misinterpreted by a client. It's not what we do or say, guys, it's how it's perceived. So this is a great example of how something we would unconsciously do could have a major effect on the meeting. So that's the importance of listening to tapes, and this will kind of show you what we're talking about there. Now, coming soon, we are modifying the 21-point checklist just a little bit, making it easier. So here's a question for you guys. Are there things in life that used to be a lot harder to do than they are today? So are there things in life that are a lot harder, used to be a lot harder to do than they are today? Yeah, I mean, just going and getting money for, it used to be a big thing to go get money, cash, because you had to go to the bank or write a check to a grocery store or whatever, and now we can just go to a cash register. So lots of things that are easy. Now, as I said earlier, yeah, sliced bread, or I still remember laughing about carrots being pre-peeled in a bag, thinking, really, people can't take the time to peel their own carrots, huh? And now, would I ever? Guess when's the last time do you think I peeled a carrot? Probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Yeah, never again, exactly. So. As I've said here in the last 18 months, we have more guys that know the 21-point checklist than have ever known it in the 18 years. Because of that, Jeff and I have heard tons and tons of tapes. So what I've done is gone through. We want all the effect of the 21-point checklist, but we found some ways to maybe streamline it during the non-financial. So all of the financial scripts will stay the same, but some of the non-financial scripts are going to get easier and more streamlined to do. So as you go back and look at, for example, the power of attorney has been modified, quality of life has been modified. So those are a couple of monsters, and they've been modified to be much easier to learn, but still just as effective. So as you see that, go back there and look at it and review during August. That's why that's happening. So if we can get the same effect with less work on your part, then we're going to do that. So that's why we're doing that. Also, we're making a little bit of a modification to the 21-point checklist as well, so that new people coming on can do an easier 21-point checklist, a 21 light, using the software versus a totally separate document. So that is coming as well. And now, Missy, what was your point about this red circle?
Previously, they haven't been able to save those proposals or go back in and edit them because it hasn't been in the software the same way that the full software is. So by having the software combined together, both the client being the 21 Lite, it allows you to be able to have the saved proposals, and if they ever turn into needing to do a full proposal on them, you can just convert that. So it's just to make it easier, and then that way it's archived as well.
Cool. And then you notice in the front we've changed the front there, and we have the quote at the top: "Only you can control your future" by Dr. Seuss, and we're going to be calling it the CYA document because we've had the full checklist been using that for probably about 6-7 years. But how generic is full checklist, guys? How generic is full checklist? So I got one very. Well, at least Dave agrees that it's very. Okay, now we're getting lots of varies. So I wanted something more specific. And all the research we've done for people who are pre-retired or retired, guess what they are extremely concerned with? Control. Control, control, control. They don't want anybody to tell them what to do. They don't want to tell anybody how to think. They want to be in control. So I changed the name of this to control control your assets documents. So do these documents help them control their assets? Isn't that all the documents? Isn't that what all of the documents are about? And the reason I like control your assets, it also has a a fun connotation in that you say, do you have your CYA docs? So is there another meaning for CYA? Yeah. So I think it's a fun. It's much more descriptive of what we do. With Control Your Assets, with the Survivor's Guide and the Quality of Life Directive, and all of the things that we look at over the money things and the umbrella and all that. We're controlling their assets. But I think it's kind of a fun little play on words. If these people say, what do you do? Well, I help people with their CYA docs or their CYA documents. What do you mean CYA documents? They'll either know what that means or they won't know what that means. Either way, it works out fine. So we have kind of a double effect with that. But I just think it's a way, since we're making some changes to the software, I think it's just a much more descriptive name for what we do rather than full benefit checklist. So change that. So those things are coming probably in the next couple of weeks. Some of the scripts have already been changed as you go back to learn the 21 point or refresh yourself with the 21 point checklist as we go into the marketing season. And that's what we should be doing in August, right? In August, we should be getting really good with the 21 point checklist, because September, October are your 2 dates. September, October are your two months in the fall to do all your marketing. So if you're going to be doing any marketing in September, when do you need to be ordering that? When do you need to be ordering? Now, right? Now. Because if you wait until the end of August to order it, guess what? Then you skip September and you only have October. Guys, you can get in front of people in November. You can get in front of people in December. What's the problem with that? I had no problem filling events in November and December. There's no problem. You can get people to come to events, and that's right, till the holidays. And what happens is the holidays doesn't prevent people from coming to a seminar or meeting with me, but it does prevent them from meeting with me the second and the third and the fourth time, if the fourth time is necessary, because that gets stretched out to a 3-month period. And what happens to my closing ratio when it goes from basically a 2 or 3 week first meeting to close versus so up from 3 weeks all the way up to 3 months? It's going to go down, and I don't want that to happen. So really, you want to be doing all of your marketing in September, October, and then all of your client management and stuff like that in November, December. Make sense? Power of attorney. I had some guys again question whether the power of attorney is really that big a deal. Well, we all know that it's a big deal for Social Security and Medicare, but this is a New York Times article, and they were talking about finding out your power of attorney is powerless, and just highlighted some things here. And you take the witness and notarized documents to a financial institution, a big brokerage firm like Wells Fargo or Ameriprise, or a national or regional bank or credit union, and an official says, no, we won't honor your power of attorney. And then this is from the banking industry. Financial industry executives said they couldn't provide an estimate of how many banks and brokerages insist on their own power of attorney forms. But I don't think it's uncommon, guys. Do you really think they don't know how many of their members are honoring or not honoring powers of attorney? So I want you to all answer that. Do you really think the banking industry and the brokerage industry doesn't know how many people? Yeah, they know. They know. And when they say, but I don't think it's uncommon, is their key word and tricky phrase for what? We're all doing it. Okay? She defended the practice saying, well, banks hold important assets, and they have to be very careful when someone is asking for access to a customer's account. Yeah, because my married wife is gonna take all my money, right? So I'm in a nursing home. My married wife's gonna take all my money. Yeah, that's right. It sounds like they're using the CYA documents there. So it's BS, right? But they said even if you have the bank powers of attorney, read those bank forms carefully, or have a lawyer review them, because they can contain disadvantaged indemnity and arbitration clauses or provisions that contradict the individual's general power of attorney. So if you use the thing they do is the bank or brokerage's power of attorney, if you sign that, will work against your current power of attorney. Now you really got a mess. It says Stonewall families have to petition and become their relatives' guardians and conservators, a long, expensive process when they all wanted to pay their bills. And we have so this New York Times article, you should have it available. You should have it at finger's reach. You're not going to actually give it to the clients unless they ask for it. But if anybody says poo-poo or throws poo-poo on the fact that powers of attorney don't work, This is a great article that says that's not the case from a very trusted news source. Make sense? Fidelity one-ups Vanguard iShares, becoming the first company to offer a no-fee index fund. No fees. Guys, what's happening to fees? What's happening to fees? Not only are they going down, they're going away. This is crazy. So if you don't have another value like the CYA documents to show your clients, advisors that are charging people a 1 or even 2% between what they're being charged and what the money manager is charging, guess what's going to happen to those money managers if they don't have some other value to provide the client? They're going to go away. So, and do you think this just is a one-off, or do you think everybody's going to now rush to meet Fidelity with Vanguard and everybody else? They're all going to rush to meet. It's just fees are going down. That's the value of what we do with the CYA doc, the 21-point checklist, with the doing a 50-50. At least you get paid full amount on the 50% with the FIAs, etc. So Warren Buffett's metric, this favorite Warren Buffett metric tells us the stock market crash could be coming. Without question, Warren Buffett and the rest of Berkshire Hathaway investment firm incorporate many different metrics when evaluating prospective companies to acquire and stocks to buy. However, Buffett himself has mentioned one specific metric as the best indicator of stock valuations, and it has appropriately been named the Buffett indicator in the investing community. Here's what Buffett indicator is and why it may be signaling the stock market is a bit overheated. Now, does anybody know what that is? Does anybody know what that indicator is? I don't see it. Okay. This metric gives you the overall feel for the valuation of U.S. stocks. In fact, he described it as the best single measure of where valuations stand at any given moment in 2001 interview with Fortune magazine. It's a fairly simple metric. Basically, divide the total market capitalization of U.S. stocks by the latest GDP. So where do you think we are right now? In danger territory or not in danger territory? If you were to take a wild guess. Yeah. So, danger territory. Did anything bad happen in 2000 to stocks? And then we had what? 2008. Then we had the little downturn in 2015. But look at where we are right now, guys. So, to be clear, no stock market metrics are 100% reliable at predicting corrections, crashes, rallies, or stagnant stocks. After all, if this were the case, everyone would know exactly when to buy, sell, hold, or to maximize their profits. So that being said, the Buffett indicator, while it's not a flawless indicator, does tend to peak during hot stock markets and bottom during weak markets. As a general rule, if the indicator falls below 80 or 90% or so, it signals that stocks are cheap. On the other hand, significantly higher than 100% can indicate stocks are expensive. So think about that. How would you have liked to have bought in stocks in 1995, guys? How would you like to have loaded up on stocks in 1995? How would you like to have loaded up on stocks in 2002? How would you like to have loaded up on stocks at the end of 2008, 2009? Okay. How would you like to have loaded up on stocks at the beginning of 2000? How would you like to be loaded up in stocks in 2008? Should we be loaded up in stocks currently? No. Okay. So what the main topic today was an article I read in Harvard Business Review talking about how we create chemistry or trust with people. How do we create chemistry or trust with people? And the fact is, guys, these people have worked with their advisor for years. We're coming into them and we're getting them to move their money within 3 weeks. Some of their money or all their money? All their money within 3 weeks. So we have to be very good students of trust. So what Harvard Review said is there was one thing that created trust. And guess what it was? In fact, there's a hint right here. Questions. When you ask a question, stop, wait, and allow the person to digest and respond. So this is from the article. When you ask a question, stop, wait, and allow the person to digest and respond. Don't try to just fill in the silence or move away from what appears to be a dead end. Guys, are they talking to us? Is this article talking to us? I hear on tapes, and Jeff, do you hear on tapes where a guy asks a fabulous question and then he waits for a half a second, and what does he do?
Oh, he jumps right in with the answer.
Yeah, because when they hear, guys, when you hear a half a second of silence, to you, that half a second sounds like what? That half a second of silence, when you ask a question, that half a second silence sounds like what? Sounds like 10 seconds of silence. Yeah, it sounds like forever, Sue, Michael. So we want to give them a chance. And the thing is, too, are we working with people who are 20 or people who are 60 and up? So you have to understand, when people are older, what's happened to their hearing. So I would talk to my dad, and every time I would talk to my dad, he'd always take about 5 seconds to answer me. And I could see what he was doing is what? He missed about every fourth or fifth word. So he was missing 10, 20% of everything I was saying. And that 5 seconds was for him to go put everything into context and fill in those words in his brains, his processing, right, Tom? So you got to give them time. Now, you guys are smart enough, or you wouldn't be successful in business like you are, that you need to look at people and determine whether they're processing or whether they're completely confused or it's the deer in the headlight. And can you tell the difference between somebody who's processing and somebody who's got a deer in the headlights, where they don't know what the heck you're talking about or what the answer is? Usually you can, right, Sue? Usually you can. So pay attention to that. Give them time to process and then answer. For example, one of the best ways to do this, is by following up a closed-ended question, such as a yes or where they answer yes or no, with what, guys? How often do we? We're teaching you exactly what Harvard Business Review is teaching people, which is say what? When you ask a closed-ended question, when you hear yes or no, you follow it up with what? Yeah, and why? And why? Why? Because you follow up a closed-ended question with an open-ended question. Let them inform you. Get the sequence right. What do we tell you about getting the sequence right? Asking questions in the right order. Important or not important? It's extremely important. Remember, for example, when we're asking questions, do we ever start with their finances, or do we start with real-world examples? Do we ever start with their personal finances, or we always start with real world? Yeah, we start with real world examples, Sue, because we want them to say, if the real world works this way, Nick, then everything works this way. And if everything works this way, then my money works this way. But you don't start with the money. If you start with the money, what could they do? If you start with their money, what will they do? They'll close down. They'll get defensive. They'll have a knee-jerk reaction. We do not want them to do that. So we always start with real world. Now, so what they're saying here is, one of the most interesting findings of the research was that the order of questions has a significant effect on how people respond. Okay, so this is a different example of how sequence is important. For example, if gaining insight and just getting information, what meeting at the first, second, or third do we just want to gain insight and get information? Which meeting? First, second, or third? At the first meeting, right? First meeting. So it says that if gaining insight and just getting information, regardless of the longer term relationship, is the objective, then start with the toughest or most invasive questions first, and is the preferred method. So isn't that what we do at the first meeting? We get invasive, right? How much money do you have? Where is it? Who's your manager? Blah, blah, blah. So we get right into their right, Nick, into Cialdini's pre-persuasion, exactly. So we get right into the tough questions. But at the second meeting, are we just simply trying to get insight and information, or are we trying to gain trust at the second meeting? Trust. See, I used to just go straight for the jugular. When I was making 50 grand a year, I'd go straight for the jugular, and guess how that worked out for me? 50 grand a year is how it worked out for me. However, in a relationship building, the opposite is true. In relationship building, the opposite is true. We need to build up to intimacy, trust, and transparency. We need to build up to that. When you do that, that's how you're going to succeed. So you want to start small. See, build up means what? Start big or start small? Build up means start big or start small? Start small. So the first thing we cover with the CYA docs, or the 29-point checklist, is what? Survivor's Guide. Will anybody leave their current advisor for a Survivor's Guide? Will anybody leave their current? No. But that's why we start with it. That's why we start with it. See, when I was making 50 grand a year, I would go straight for the fees. I would go straight for the proof that their guy is screwing them. And guess what they did when the first thing I covered was your guy is stealing from you. Look, guess what their knee-jerk reaction was? Defend him. Yep, defensive. So I learned that we have to start small and build. That's how we build the trust. That's how we build the trust. And you got to use the right tone. Of all the things we do to help open up or shut down a conversation, the tone has to be among the most critical. The findings here is exactly what you'd expect. People are more forthcoming when you ask questions in a casual way rather than in a buttoned-up official tone. What do I tell you about your tone, guys? It should be like you're sitting with somebody at the bar having a beer. Also, is there a skill we teach you to make it more casual? Is there a skill we teach you to make it more casual? What do you think GOTS is about, guys? What do you think GOTS is about? And when you hear me GOTS somebody, am I doing GOTS in a friendly manner, in a happy manner, in an excited manner? Am I doing it in an official tone? That's right. So if they say the market's going to go up, if they give me the answer, the market's going to go up, do I say, that's right, the market's going to go up? Or do I say, yeah, that's right, the market's going to go up? Which one is more casual, first or second? So if I'm parroting, yes, the second one's more casual. So it makes it more fun. It's a happy tone. Yeah, you got that right. Good job. Blah blah. So that's the kind of tone you want. That sets up people who are friendly to you. If you're more official, and that's what I hear, guys, with monotone. You're monotone, or you're very official. You're afraid to put in any liveliness into your tone at all because you don't want to sound unprofessional, guys. If you listen to my tapes with my prospects or my clients, I was the most unprofessional sounding guy in the world. How did they make the determination of whether I was professional or not? Based on how I conducted myself or on their ability to figure out what was going on? Did they make the determination because I was having fun and I laughed and I talked in different tones and I would talk loud and talk soft and get very theatrical with the way I talked? Did they say that's not very professional, I can't work with that guy? Or did they make it based on the information that they were able to glean from the information we covered? They made their perception based on the information. Me having a good time allowed them to trust me enough to believe the information. Am I speaking Greek, or Jeff, can you maybe explain that better?
Well, who do they think is the better lawyer? The prosecutor who's all buttoned up or the country attorney? The country attorney, because they feel like they can connect with him. He speaks their language. They're part of the process. They get him. It's easy for them to let their guard down and listen to what he has to say. If you're too buttoned up, they're not sure whether or not they have to try and figure out what you're saying, and they're not going to do that. They're just going to go home and try and figure it out when you're not there, and it's not going to be favorable for you.
Yeah, they'll say, that seemed to make sense, but I need to think about that, and I'm going to go research it at home. And like you said, Jeff, it's never going to be favorable to you. Thanks. And then it says, we all want to feel someone is interested in us. Guys, what is GOTS all about? What is every single skill we work on of GOTS, every single skill that you're working on with a 15-minute drill about is making them feel like they are the most important person in the room. When we ask open-ended questions instead of closed-ended questions, it makes them feel like they're the most important person in the room. When we laugh at their jokes, it makes them feel like the most important person in the room. When even if they say something wrong, we don't correct them, but tell them why what they said was right, and then help them discover for themselves why what the real answer is. They're the most important person in the room. It's showing interest. We all want to share that which is uniquely us. The things that make us valuable to people. We want all to connect with people who are trustworthy, and we want others to see us as trustworthy. In a word, ask the right question. It is really that simple. Don't complicate it. So guys, everything we've been teaching for the last 18 years, everything I've been doing for the last 20 years, again, is validated over and over. It's validated with motivational interviewing. It's validated in research by Harvard Business School. This stuff that you're doing is the right way to communicate. And there's science and there's proof and there's research to back that up. Okay? Is the full checklist website going away? No, that's going to stay as is. We're still going to it still gets people interested, or if you want to ask, if you want to show people what we do, the fullchecklist.org is still a great site to send people to, because it doesn't really talk about it's not going to interfere with you using the CYA documents. It's very easy to say, yeah, that full checklist, what we call them is the CYA documents. Based on what you saw on the full checklist, why do you think we call them the CYA documents? See, it's very easy to connect back into that. So we're still determining till whether we're going to change the name of that website to the CYA. I'd prefer not to. Why do you think I'd prefer just to keep the full checklist as it is, rather than changing it to CYA docs? There, Michael's got it. Good job, Michael. Third party. And what's the value of having a third party document? Gives you more credibility. So, have you ever heard the term, I've forgotten more than I ever knew? Yeah, Sue, it's unbiased, exactly. So, I'm sure all of you have read this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but guess what? How long before we start to drift away from those? Even if we've read those 7 effective habits, how long before we start drifting away? So let's talk about those. Be proactive, number 1. Begin with the end in mind, number 2. Put first things first, number 3. Think win-win, number 4. Seek first to understand, then be understood, number 5. And synergy, number 6. So let's talk about that. Be proactive. That I take initiative. I am a responsible person. I do the right thing without being asked, even when no one is looking. I choose my actions and attitudes and moods. I do not blame others for my wrong actions. Now, this was actually a slide or a book that was put together for children. Yet, is this something, are all of these things, what do they say? Everything I ever needed to know, I was taught in what class? Everything I ever needed to know, I was taught in what class? Kindergarten. Yep, kindergarten, Sue. So are these things that we could put into play in our everyday lives better than what we do? Don't blame others for my wrong actions. Choose my own attitudes and moods. I do the right thing without being asked, even when no one is looking. Those are good things. Now, so challenge yourself to test the principle of proactivity by doing the following. Start replacing reactive language with proactive language. Instead of saying, he makes me so mad, or they make me so mad, or that's a tire kicker and plate licker. Guys, is it when you say somebody's a tire kicker and a plate licker, is that reactive or proactive? Everybody answer that, because you all use that language. Everybody answer that. I got 2, 3. Everybody answer that. You can just put R there for if you want for active, or P for proactive. It's reactive. So when you do that, guess what? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? That's a bad thing. I don't look at anybody as a tire kicker and plate licker. I look at everybody wants somebody they can trust. That's the way I look at it. Everybody is looking for somebody they can trust. Do you really think that do you think people are out there looking for people they don't trust? You know, why are people only tire kickers and only plate lickers? Because they don't want you. They don't trust you. So I don't look at people as being tire kickers. That's right, Charles. They don't look at people I don't look at people as tire kickers and plate lickers. I look at it as these are people that I need to gain their trust. These are people who have every right not to trust me. And do they have every right not to trust me, guys? Do prospects, do people, the consumer, have every right not to trust me? Yes, they do. Why? Because 100% of advisors say that they're the best. 100% of the advisors say that they care more than other advisors. 100% of advisors say they have a better solution. How many advisors, what percentage of advisors can care more than other advisors, can have a better solution than other advisors, can be smarter than other advisors? What percent? Only one. Only 1 person out of 100 can be that person. So that means they have a 99% of being right, thinking that I'm a liar if I try to present myself as any of those things. So so they don't trust us. They don't trust us. That's why I ask open-ended questions, because anything that comes out of my mouth is not going to be believed. And I never go in blaming clients. Because that's how I made 50 grand a year. When I changed my attitude around from thinking everybody was tire kickers and plate lickers and these are all idiots, how can they take my information, go back to their current advisor that caused them all the problems in the first place? When I quit accusing them of being dumb, of being tire kickers, of being users, my income went up. It's the old adage that we learned in kindergarten: I'm rubber, you're glue. What you say about me bounces off me and comes right back to you. You call you say distrust a client. Are you distrusting when you call somebody a tire kicker and a plate licker? Are you saying I don't trust that person? So when you tell them you don't trust them, guess what bounces off of them comes right back to you? They don't trust you. Make sense? Convert reactive to proactive. Instead, I'm going to help them understand that I'm trustworthy. That's my attitude. Instead of those are tire kickers and plate lickers, they're just going to use my information. They're just here to eat the meal. They're just blah, 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 blah. No, what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that person who, came to join me for a meal, and I'm going to have them trust me. I'm going to have them want to come meet with me because I've got things that nobody else has. I conduct myself in a different manner everybody else has. Make sense? Second habit, begin with the end in mind. Have a plan. I plan ahead and set my goals for myself. I am prepared at all times. Guys, this drives me bananas. When you call Jeff or you call Jerry, you know better than to call me, and you'll say, I'm meeting with this person in 3 hours. What should I do? Well, what should a guy who's meeting with somebody in 3 hours do? What should somebody meeting with somebody in 3 hours do? Yeah, I agree. Cancel the meeting and reschedule the meeting. Plan the week before. Guys, and Missy can validate this. I did all of my case analysis on Saturday morning. I came in at 5 in the morning, did all of my case work that Saturday for the following week. So that means I was at least 2 days to 7 days. I was done 2 days to 7 days ahead of when I was going to meet people. And then guess what I did with any downtime I had in between there? I prepped. I practiced. I rehearsed. I was never not prepared for a meeting. I think about how the choices I make now will affect my future, guys. And I was telling my freshman, he'll be a sophomore in college. He'll be a sophomore in college, and he was just so confused because he was talking about this. The first time we really talked about what I do, and I said, I can show guys that when they master these scripts, when they spend 100 hours and master these scripts, and just ask the questions in the order that I asked them to ask them. And then they spend 15 minutes a day working on their communication skills. And then after they've spent that 100 hours learning the scripts, then what they're going to do is just use them for 6 months and tape every meeting and tweak every single meeting they have for 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, so that 100 hours to learn the scripts, 15 minutes a day forever, and 6 months of taping every single meeting and tweaking them, they can make $1 million to $2 million. And he goes, well, then all your guys make $1 million to $2 million? And I said, no. A good handful of them do, but the rest don't. And he was just scratching his head. Why don't they do that? And I was at a loss to tell him why. So you guys know the 21-point checklist, but do you tape every meeting and critique every meeting? A handful of guys that are either making $1 million or on their way to making $1 million or more, they do. I know they do because I've been working with them. But the ones that don't, I was hard pressed to tell them why they didn't, because I scratched my head. I said, I think what they do is when they come on board and they're making 150 and they get up to 300 or 400,000, they say, oh, I've made it. And that's their choice. I get it. But how would you explain to him why that was the case? So you've learned the 21-point checklist, but are you then critiquing every meeting you have? Guys, for 3 years, I critiqued every single meeting I had, debriefed. You know, what do football players do after every single game? What do NFL players do after every single film? Debrief. What do Navy SEALs do after every single mission? What do SWAT teams do after every single mission? What do surgeons do? What do surgeons do? So think about how your choices affect your future. I think about the positive or negative consequences of my actions before I act. So challenge yourself to test the principle of beginning at the end of with the end in mind by doing the following. Visualize in rich detail your own funeral. Who's there? What are they saying about you? About how you lived your life, about the relationships you had? What do you want them to say? Think about how your priorities would change if you only had 30 days more days to live. Start living by these priorities. Break down the different roles in your life, whether it's professional, personal, or community. List 3 to 5 goals you want to achieve for each. Now, do I like goals, guys? I do. That's right, Tom. I don't like, you all know, I don't like goals. I like systems. I like systems that I can control. I can't control what happens to a goal, but if I have a system, I can make sure a system is full of activities. I can hold myself accountable for activities. And if I do those activities, I follow that system, I will achieve those goals. But I never start with the goal. I just start with the system and the activities I can control. That's what you should be looking at doing. Define what scares you. Public speaking, how about critical feedback? Many of you won't do tape reviews because you're afraid of what? Critical feedback. Write down the worst case scenario for your biggest fear. Guys, write down the biggest fear of doing a tape review with Jeff or myself. What is the worst thing that can happen? What is the worst thing that can happen? Well, I get better. That's the best thing that can happen. And you will. Every single tape review, you will get better. What's the worst thing that can happen? Now, with Jeff is never going to yell at you. With me, I might say, just so you know, I don't yell at people doing tape reviews. Why do I never yell at people doing tape reviews? Because that's somebody who's what? I encourage activity. That's right, Sue. They're trying. They're trying. Now, and I'll take that back. I have yelled very occasionally at tape reviews. Guess why? What do you think the reason I was yelling at a tape review for? Guess what? Guess why I was yelling at the tape review? Yes, the same as Sue's got it. Mark's got it. Because it was the same dang mistakes they made the last time we covered the not once. I'll let you make the same mistake once, twice, but by the third time, if you're still making the same thing, make mistakes, guess what? What's the point of mentoring if you're not taking what we're finding and making sure they never happened again? See, that's what I did when I did my tape reviews. Is I said, you know what? I may screw up the rest of the meeting, but this one thing that I found on this tape, I am never going to do it wrong again. And I may screw up the rest of the meeting, but not this one, this part. And that's what I did with every single little parts of the meeting. Habit 3, put first things first. Work first, then play. I do things that I have to do before I do the things I want to do. Guys, the reason we find, let me just finish. I stay focused on what I'm doing. I try to minimize distraction and regroup if I get stuck. I spend my time on the things that are most important. So, and I've talked about this before. Guys, I get that we have family. Family comes first. I get that we get sick. We all get sick. But here's the funny thing. When a teacher, when a policeman, when a nurse, when a retail store manager, when a ditch digger, when they get sick, when do they go back to work? You know, and God forbid, when they lose a family member, when do they go back to work? When they have a family member who's sick, when do they go back to work? But see, do the things that you want to do before, the things you have to do before. Guys, it's amazing. In this industry, guess how many times I've had somebody saying, I'm going to take the next 3 months off because I'm getting a divorce. I'm taking the next month off because my wife has a knee problem. So it's great that you love your wife. It's fabulous that you love your wife, that you want to take care of her. That says a lot about you. But how many policemen, nurses, doctors, ditch diggers, retail store managers take a month off because their wife has a hurt knee? Yeah, I like what Mark says. Mark said, working got me through my divorce. But so you got to do what you want to do. But successful people, effective people, I do the things that I have to do before the things that I want to do. So here's some things you can do to practice first things first. Identify what, this is out of the book here, these quadrants and things. Create your own time management matrix to start prioritizing. Estimate how much time you spend in each quadrant, then log. So this is right out of the book. So it's basically saying, monitor your time, and guess what you're going to find? Because the worst, I'll tell you straight out, the worst thing that ever happened for financial advisors' incomes, what do you think that the worst thing that ever happened? It's happened in the last 15, 16 years. What's the worst thing that ever happened for financial advisors' income? Sue's got it. Everybody else give me good answers, but Sue's got the one I think is wrong. Michael's got it? Yeah, it's a cell phone. Why is a cell phone the worst thing that ever happened for financial advisors' incomes? When I made my $1 million, guess where I was for 8 hours a day? When I made my $1 million, guess where I was for 8 hours a day? In my office. And if I didn't have something to do, I found something to do. But now I have, when I'm looking and when I'm emailing people, guess how often I find that they're emailing me back from their phone? And if they're emailing back from the phone, guess where I don't think they are? Because it's a hell of a lot easier to type it onto their computer than into a phone. So if they're emailing back from their phone, they're not in their office. So again, when you're working, work. When you're not working, that's my adage. When I'm at work, I'm working. When I'm not at work, I'm not working. I think that's just a better lifestyle. But when you have your phone along with you, are you ever really not at work, and are you ever really at work? See, I think you're mixing them up. I think that's bad for your psyche. It's bad for your family. It's bad for everything. Either when you're at work, be at work. When you're not at work, don't be at work. Habit 4, think win-win. Everybody can win. I can solve a problem when an issue comes up with another person. I think about what the other person wants, and not just what I want. Isn't this what the whole 5Q system is about? Win-win. We give people what they want, which is to be right. We give the people what they want, which is to be right, instead of us having to be right. We're not trying to defeat them. We're trying to work with them. I'm kind to others, GOTS. I'm kind to others and try to think of ways to help everyone be happy. Get yourself to start thinking win-win in these challenges. Think about an upcoming interaction where you'll be attempting to reach an agreement or a solution. Write down a list of what the other person is looking for. Next, write a list that next to how you can make an offer to meet those needs. Identify 3 important relationships in your life. Think about what you feel and balance is in each of these relationships. Do you give more than you take? Do you take more than you give? Write down 10 ways to give more than you take. Deeply consider your own interaction tendencies. Are they win-lose? How does the effect of your interactions with others? Can you identify the source of that approach? Determine whether or not this approach serves you well in your relationship. Write all of this down. Why do they want you to write it down? Now, I hate it. I get it. I hate writing these down. But writing things down make you actually think about things. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. I'm confident when voicing my ideas. I look people in the eyes when I'm talking. I listen to other people's ideas and feelings. I try to see things from other people's points of view. I listen to what others. Is this also about what 5Q is about? All of this. So next time you're watching 2 people communicating, cover your ears and watch. What emotions are being communicated? I love this drill. Cover your neck. If you're at a cafe or restaurant or whatever, cover your ears, or sometimes if they're across the room, you don't have to do this. What emotions are being communicated that might not come across through the words alone? Was one person or the other more interested in the conversation? Write that down, what you notice. That's going to help you better recognize that when you're with a client. Next time you give a presentation, rooted in empathy. Begin by describing the audience's point of view in great detail. What problems are they facing? How is it about what you're saying is the solution to their problems? Guys, those of you that have been on for 5, 6, 7 years, all the 5Q presentations that we put together is this what we talk about? It's always from the person's point of view, not about how smart. Do we ever start any of our presentations with our credentials, with how smart we are, about what our office does? We never do. It's always about them, about the audience and what they need. Synergize. I value other people's strengths and learn from them. I get along well with others, even people who are different from me. I work well in groups. I seek out other people's ideas to solve problems because I know that by teaming with others, and that's what we're doing with 5 years, aren't we teaming up with our clients to help them understand better what it is they want to do? Instead of just telling them what they should do, we team up with them, we synergize with them. So make a list of people that irritate you. Now choose just one person. How are their views different? Put yourself in their shoes for a minute. Think and pretend how it feels to be them. Does this help you understand them better? So I'm sure a lot of you are going to be putting my name down today because I irritate you, and you're going to be doing this. You're going to be thinking about how I think differently. And the number 2 is make a list of people whom you get along with well. Now choose just one person. How are their views different? Now write down a situation where you have an excellent teamwork and synergy. Why did that happen? What conditions were not, or which conditions were met to reach such fluidity with your interactions? How can you recreate these conditions again? So habit 7, sharpen your saw, which means make sure you're doing something to be physically active. They found physical activity is good for the brain, or it doesn't affect the brain. It's very good for the brain. Working your brain is good for the brain. You have to have some sort of spiritual connection. You need emotional connections. So make sure you're feeding the golden goose with physical activity, mental activity, spiritual activity, and emotional and social activity. This keeps you a good, well-rounded person. Okay. So when you've mastered the crib notes and the motive, and that's August is the best time to do it. Got to do that 15-minute drill, guys. Every single working day. It's the most important 15 minutes. Not looking at the paper, not looking at your email, not listening to your voice messages. It's doing this 15-minute drill that will make you $1 million to $2 million a year. Pay attention to the 5-minute moneymaker and the tape breakdowns that we send you weekly. They're great lessons that you can learn from other people's mistakes. See, when you're doing those things, that's when you're going to get every single client that you see. Just think about this. If every client you saw in September, October moved all their money to you, what kind of 6 months will you have? What kind of end of the year will you have? You're going to have a fabulous end of the year. August is the time to really get into these habits again as well, okay? So I appreciate all you guys. And again, I know that you've all read that book, or most of you have read that book, but it's good to be thinking about those things on a continual basis because we want to be the most effective person we can be. There's only one resource we don't get more of, and what's that? Time. So make sure that every minute you're using, relax. Hey, if you're using that minute to relax, that's fine. That's good. That's a good use of your time. But if you're not consciously saying I'm going to relax during this time, if it's just wasting time, that's a whole different thing. So be an effective person at work, be an effective person at play, be an effective person with your family, okay? So you guys have a great rest of the week. I'll talk to you all next Monday. Thanks, everybody.